first off, talking about Mars, and I think this is leading up to something. All of the information that I have been seeing, and this ties into the media, it ties into everything. It really does. And I think there's a concerted effort with, one, the president talking about a space force. The Air Force already has a space force, but this is taking it from them, basically, and establishing it under an admiral at the Pentagon who's going to be running the Space Force. It's already established. They already have massive ships that are in space, and I mean massive, star-type cruisers, as I guess they're called, if I'm not mistaken. I forgot, but I was looking into that. Top secret stuff that's kind of come out that they're releasing, not because they want to, but because there's a program that is established for the revelation of what they would call as aliens from other planets, which are not. They're from Earth. And these aliens are eventually going to be, I was even looking at, Einstein and Oppenheimer wrote the plan for this back in 1947. Were you aware of that, Greg?
No, actually, I was not. Tell me about that.
Well, Oppenheimer and Einstein wrote a paper, 6 pages, that was very top secret, very, hidden. And recently, I found it, and this paper stated the protocol of basically what they're saying is that if we find sentient life that's organized, thinking, and has their own society, they are to be received and accepted as a people group, and that they are to be given the status of, I've got a cat attack here, hello, and that they are to be received, and if they are advanced, that we are to put them as other world sentient beings, EBEs, not extra biological entities, but as fellow creatures, so to speak.
Do you know when that was actually written?
Yes, it was actually written by Oppenheimer and Einstein.
But do you know what year?
47.
47, wow, okay.
Yeah, that's how far back this goes. But at that time, the government, I think, was aware that there are what they thought of as extraterrestrials. Not looking at it from the biblical sense, they did realize that they were interdimensional, that they could travel between dimensions because of the different ways at which they materialize in our time and space. And they come from a 4-dimensional or 5-dimensional, it could be even greater, form of frequency, where everything is frequency-based. All of life is based on vibration. Each person, when you're born, is designated a frequency, and they have actually microscopically watched when a fertilized egg and sperm come together. When they do, there is a light spark that occurs. Very interesting. And
I've heard about this vibration and the frequency. So we're all, you think we're all just...
Yes, we are a frequency, and just
on a radio channel?
Yeah, just like on radio, when you ride that frequency, you're not on any other frequency, react or be part of any other frequency. You're on that frequency. And we are vibrations carried on a frequency, which is the Earth frequency. Our minds operate at 8 hertz, 8 to 13, well, right up in there. The Earth is operating at that type of that's the thought frequency of man right there. And the Earth vibrates, and everything is like in water, in the waters, so to speak. And if you vibrate at a certain frequency, it will form, and you can do this in water and vibrate, and you can check it out on the internet, how it forms little planetules, little small-looking planets. And these very things indicate that we're in a water-type atmosphere. We have rocky and gaseous planets, but they don't even understand totally. There is a core with each of these planets that is solid, whether they're gaseous or rocky. And with the rocky planets, we have a core, basically like a mini sun, that you would say. Getting into the fact, I do believe that the fact is we have hollow portions of the planet, and that, like Admiral Byrd discovered, and for him who sailed into it, have discovered a different civilization within this earth. Yeah, thank you, Spooky. But so this is the area that they deny, and of course they deny it, but they don't let anybody cross over the North Pole or the South Pole. Really careful about that. And the Russians have released, it might have been from the American side, but it shows the North Pole, and it shows a hole in the top and some emissions and strange happenings of clouds and radiation and light.
Wow.
And that's where Byrd had gone and flown into and was received by a culture and people and the ruler there. And so we have all this, but everybody says, oh, no, and the governments don't say anything. They deny it. But I think really all of the flying aircraft that are solid and real may come from that area in the South Pole. And the ancients of old, whatever it is, because as you realize, if you read the Bible, it says he will judge the heavens, the earth, and the things beneath the earth. Haven't you read that before?
Yes, I have, absolutely.
So what's beneath? Well, Admiral Byrd met him.
Was it Hades? I always thought Hades was in the middle of the earth.
Well, Hades is the dark, the shades, meaning buried in the pit, buried in a grave. That's Sheol by the ancient Hebrew. Hades in the realm of the Greeks.
But it's a physical place, right? Hades is a physical realm.
But it is real. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I believe so. And I think that's indicative of that. And so, if you read the book, and I'm going to order it soon, called The Smoky God, that is one where two sailors from Norway sailed to a certain area and ended up with these tall beings. And this is an account that they gave. And it ties in with Admiral Byrd. You get the same account. And if you look at his interview where he talks about a land bigger than the United States, what's he talking about? This reality of wealth and power that there's just huge. And so, was he lying? No. He was a very honorable admiral within the United States Navy. They had him go to the South Pole with the operation that went down there that was attacked by flying craft that came out of the waters. So these are realities. And Germany had tied into that, going to the South Pole, and over 1 million people and 3,000 or 1,000, varies in the story, 1,000 to 3,000 scientists disappeared and went to the South Pole, they assume. So, and you notice that they forbid any except scientific, governmental, accepted parties to be on the South Pole. You can't, have you ever wondered why they don't?
Yeah, I wonder why.
And setting up the hotels down there, and it's because they won't want you to see what's happening down there and what is there. And if you were to discover anything that they did not want to be public, well, that's what they do with the North and the South Pole. Because otherwise, the wealthy people would be building hotels and ski trips and cross country, and just imagine the money that could be made right there with, and the Antarctic and Arctic regions. The money it would pay to get there and to look at the stars and the aurora borealis, but they don't do that. Why? They're forbidden. They can't do that. And that admiral, just cue to memory, the admiral that recently died in Bahrain, that they say, oh, he committed suicide. Why would an admiral do that? Have you ever heard of mass suicides or massive? Yeah, amongst the troops. But when it comes to the admirals, you rarely have a suicide. I think it's highly suspicious and not something that admiral was about to do or was doing or was speaking about, I think got him killed. And it might be dealing with Antarctica. It might have been dealing with operations other than what they wanted to be revealed. And he was over a huge group. And you don't get to be an admiral without having your fingers, and availability and understanding of all the operations and possibilities. And I don't know what happened, but I think he was gotten rid of. For what? I have to look at, and he was well decorated and was a pilot, had 1,000 landings on an aircraft carrier, highly decorated, a very stable person. And I don't foresee that anybody in that position, if he had real problems with himself, he might have stepped out of the position first and then let somebody else assume the position and then disappear so that it wouldn't draw attention. By the fact that he died in the position suggests there's something else at play, in my opinion. It's just guessing, but sounds highly.
Do they say how he killed himself? Is there any motive?
No, they just said it looks to be, and they're very cagey with how they say it. It appears to be a suicide. Is kind of how they didn't say it's definite. It was a suicide. They're not
apparent
with that.
Suicide.
Yeah, that's about what they're saying. So,
yeah.
So that could send a message to anybody who killed them that, we're keeping the protocol. Because in the handbook, and it could be under CIA, NSA, whatever handbook you want to call, they say anytime you ice somebody, you have to make it look like a suicide so that it is plausible, deniable by anybody as there it was a murder. And they have several means that they use that are very effective in making it look like it was totally a suicide, and it makes it almost open and shut case. There was something at play with that admiral. If he did commit suicide, why? If it wasn't, he was removed, did they present certain, let's just say, manipulations to get him to commit suicide? Sometimes it's possible to put somebody in a state of mind that a typically stable person becomes temporarily lost in their situation and under intense pressure. And, there's different methods of using, actual transmitted thoughts into his mind. You can use a frequency to, if you modulate 8 hertz frequency, you can hear that in your head because that's where you are in frequency. So you can be given thoughts, voices that are not your own, but it will be like it was your thought and your own. Satan does that. He'll frequency and will modulate that frequency and speak. And you will think it's your thought. He'll speak in your voice. It will be you and your thoughts, but it is not. It is a lie. And so getting back, this Mars landing we have now at the end of the year, we're at 2018 now, and we are moving in a direction of revelation. On the Internet, they run across the event. You've heard of that on the Internet or seen anything about the event? And if you haven't, put in your search the event. There's a lot of data on that. But it's getting back to the point, the event is going to be the revelation of we have space brothers. But they're not. But they will be claimed as interstellar personages of existence that have been visiting us for many years and have been watching us and have revealed themselves to help us. The Great Delusion will start to have its finishing act.
Wow.
And it will tie into the Pope, to Jerusalem specifically. Do you know they had a recent meeting in Israel, in Jerusalem? They have all the materials ready to build what they say is the third temple.
Oh, really?
Yes. And that they're prepared and that everybody is trained and ready. The priests and everything, lineage is established, everything. It took years to do this, and they're now prepared. That means now we are at the precipice of change. When it will occur, I don't know. But biblically, it says it will come. And then when that does come, start looking up, because the dangers that are going to come against the people of the Most High are going to be jumped on. And it will be because these will speak out against them and saying, they are the usurpers. They are the wrong. They are not of God. They are of evil. And they will call good, those who are of the faith, evil, and the evil will be called good. And that's already started. As you look at certain talk shows and even intellectual programs where they speak not derogatorily, but of, oh, those poor, quote-unquote Christians, they're mental. They have severe disability. They're going to start calling Christianity a disability.
Oh, isn't that funny? Yeah, I never thought we'd see this day, but you're absolutely right. We see it. It's everywhere.
And by that, then they can then go into legal moves that if you speak hate speech, if any of these who are mentally against us and are mentally impaired go against society, we must remove them and re-educate them or put them away, lock them up, or get rid of us. And this will be the beginnings of it, to the point where they say, no, they have to be executed. So we have all of that. And I see where it's going a little bit. And if you look at the programs and things that are going on, they're conditioning everybody. They're using, do you know they're using MK Ultra on television?
I would believe they've been doing that since TV was invented, right?
Yeah, that's right. And radio.
It's just
because
it's much
you can
worse
put
now.
things on the frequency that are unheard, of course.
Yeah.
You remember at our site we use 25 hertz tones.
Yes.
Barely audible. But you can modulate that, and you can use frequency even separate from modulating it and just using low frequencies, high amplitude, and it can affect the human body very seriously.
Wow.
And
maybe seizures? Can it trigger a seizure?
Oh, yeah,
like
absolutely. It could trigger a heart attack. It could trigger an
Wow.
aneurysm, all kinds of things if you do it correctly.
Can
and
it be
if
traced?
you want, oh, no. I mean, unless you have a frequency analyzer and you go, wait, look at that. Now, if you had an analyzer taking in the frequencies in your area, of course you could see it.
Right.
It would be there as long as you could monitor at that low frequency range.
So everybody should get one.
Yeah, I mean, that would be pretty hard. Besides, one of the things they can do is using a satellite to do that.
Oh, no.
Or guess what? Cell tower, 5G.
5G.
You could
5G.
put that in there. And yes. They should have done it when they started putting up the cell towers, and they did, but they weren't talking much. But those things can cause mass delusion, mind control. They can control your thoughts. They can modulate low frequency through it if they're adapted for it. They can be used for monitoring. Of course, you know that, especially if you're using your cell phone. They can then pick that up and have it to where it will transfer, without you knowing, to other auditing sites that can audit you and listen in and check. I'm sure somebody could be listening to our conversation right now. Hello. Hope you're doing well. And checking us out. And then we're on a list already. Most Americans, especially if I've been in military, yes, and I worked with nukes and all kinds of stuff, we're on a list. Military is definitely. And anybody that is perceived as a threat to who? The government, our government. And Christians are listed as a threat. Definitely. There isn't anybody
that's got to be a really big list. Really long list. How do they keep track of that?
Well, yeah, and if you're not on it and they want you, they'll create one, so they'll put you on it and say, hey, we have to check you out. They're not limited in their power. And this is the Father who has set this up. You go, what? No, he's allowed this to be set up for the end time. For one thing, you know, if you want to see how bad a child is, guess what you tell him? Hey,
what's that?
Go ahead. You can do anything you want today, and you will not get in trouble. You can do it. They're going to find out the nature of his heart by telling them that, because they're going to do things that you'll never think that they would do, maybe. If they're a good heart, they'll focus on good things. If not, you know, give enough power to somebody where they have total power, like Hitler or Stalin, look what happens. They were the ones that could do what they wanted to do with no interference. And behind the scenes, that's what happens in our government. They have all the power. They think as the government that they can do what they please, but that's not really how it works. But that's what they're doing. And why did they establish United Nations? Was it to prevent war? Well, that's what they told the people. But no, it was to establish a one-world government where they can control everybody more centrally, and the money and power. You control the money, you control the people. And by making it cashless, like Sweden is going nearly totally cashless, and you know, and in China, they're doing that monitoring where you get certain points, and if you don't do something right, you'll get lower, and then you can't go in or do certain things based on that. That's going to go worldwide. So we see all the basic pieces together, as I've discussed, the temple, the monitoring, which is through the phones and Facebook. And they get, you know, 2 out of 6 people in the world on Facebook now, I think, which is about 2-3 billion people getting into that point. And when you can have that and you're connected via your phone to Facebook and you're posting, guess what? They'll know your thoughts, where you are, everywhere. They can know your emotions. They use games to test your intelligence and to test what you're able to do, how you think, why you think what you think. And they will know you so much better now than they did before. And one thing else, they know people now are for space exploration. They're pushing that and going to these far planets and far out. And just like they said, Oumuamua, which came through and gave the illustration, well, this looks like this is an interstellar object that came from outside our solar system. Well, most things do. Halley's Comet, same thing. But they made a big deal about Oumuamua. And so that says, and they were trying to say, is this an interstellar spaceship? Well, no, it isn't. It's a space rock. It was unusual in shape, but everything out there has a shape, but it wasn't round. But they know there are many things like Oumuamua out there, not just round objects or rocky-looking objects. There's shafts, there's tubular, there's lots of things out there. And a lot of things they don't tell us about that are circling this planet that you don't see and that are obfuscated or blocked out to where we can't see them. So we know this, or at least some of us do, and realize that when you see something flying through the sky that's really high up and lit, sometimes that's not a satellite. And generally you're not going to see satellites too easily unless they're fairly large and have a high reflectivity, which sometimes that's true. You will. But when they change course, well, then you know it's not a satellite because satellites do not change course. I had one time which was moving across, then it stopped, raised up its front section, and it flared a big light that shined down towards me. I thought, whoa, and then just was gone. And this was high up in the atmosphere when I was in California living in Alameda. And so I realized, you know, the world and perception we're given to Mars, I would assume that one of these missions are going to go, whoa, we saw something there. It looked like a moving, living entity. We're not sure. We'll have to do an investigation. And by that, they will begin to reveal things publicly. That's why I think all these probes and everything are going there, because they want a backdrop of saying, wait, there. Oh, and we have also discovered, oh, they were hiding in the, we were kind of stymied by those little tube-like things that seem to be showing up on Mars. Now we know what that is. Those are traveling ways for the underground inhabitants. And they're teasing the public and testing them. And with that, I think that this, along with Space Force and everything that they're doing, by the next election, in the next period, from 2020 on, it's going to be a nuclear revelation. It's going to start getting hot. And these other things are prepping for that time. So whoever the next president is, I think is going to be Trump. Or it'll end up, well, he'll have to extend his presidency. I don't know. But that's a very good possibility that would be there. And we have to be aware that these things are happening. Plus, as I was talking to you and sent you earlier by messenger, they're saying that exorcisms are up and paranormal activity is up. And we're going to see eventually where UFOs are going to be more seen and I think more close to the populace in rural and big cities around the world, and they're going to get more prevalent. After that incident in the 90s where that aircraft landed in in Africa, and there were 60, 70, 80 children saw it, all the teachers. And then a lot of these sightings are by, police officers, reputable people, and the triangular craft that are huge. One person I was reading recently and said it was like a city in the air. It was so big. It had glass bottom. You could see up and see huge cross beams and all of these huge, but where maybe up to hundreds of thousands of people could be within these craft.
Doing what? So, what are they doing up there?
Well, first of all, they've established a living community in space. And I would say that they have described it to us and shown us on television what they're like. Circular, that gives a sense of gravity as they're speeding around. But maybe when you get away from Earth, it's okay. You're not free-falling because you're not near a body. And so, therefore, gravity keeps you in place where you're not floating. When you're close to Earth and you float, and that might be due to the fact of the mass of the Earth pulling you down. And it's due to the weight in space that pulls you to that center. Like water swirling around in a vortex, it's kind of like that vortex effect, and it pulls you down. And with the ISS, International Space Station, it's speeding so fast that it's falling, but it won't fall to the Earth. It's just accelerated so fast it does not go down. It just keeps it moving. And so that's one of the things that I think is affecting that. So we're in a period right now where they're doing more and more revelation of what they want us to believe versus what is true from the biblical perspective for us. We're dealing with entities and spirits and fallen angels and Nephilim that have been condemned to dwell under the earth until the judgment. And in the days that they are released, they will be released again for the judgment and to complete the wrath of the Father. All of these will be released from the inner earth and from the north and south, and they will be malevolent and very powerful, and people will have heart attacks just looking at them because they will be so evil, so fearfully ugly and destructive, and it will be mass hysteria, in my opinion, at that time. So these Mars shots that they're taking, you notice they're getting to where they're giving more clear shots and long view shots, and it opens the door for finding something accidentally, so to speak, accidentally on purpose in some cases. Because they could edit out any of those things. That one shot, which it looked like a man in a robe, or it could have been a woman, walking down a hill on Mars.
I thought it looked like a Bigfoot. That's what I remember.
Well, and it does. But it was, I think it was very tall, too.
Yeah.
It was human size. So I think we're at the precipice now, within the next 5 or so years, of when things are going to be opened up. But they're going to open it up under the alien brother from another planet, which is not true. They're from Earth. All of them are.
Do you think there are living creatures, living beings on other planets? I mean, if there's
there are.
Out there.
The Father has many universes out there, many galaxies. I don't think this is the only, quote, universe. I think there are many, and they're each at a different level. Have you ever seen the thing that looks like a web, which they say the universe is, and it's kind of like a web structure of galaxies and things? It's very much like that, and I think it's infinite. It never ends. So are there other living creatures far away? Yeah, there are. Of course we know that because we know there are angels, angelic hosts, but also created areas, because this is a creation. And did he create others everywhere? He could do as many as he wanted, and it would be no problem for him. So we have to understand that, yes, there's life out there. Are they allowed to interact here? No. It's made to think that they are. But one of the things that there's this ancient club, or a club that this gentleman started. I forgot the name of it. But he invited Gene Roddenberry and certain people to meet as an estate and talk about these things and the prime directive. And they talked about the beings that he was in contact with. And they said, why don't you just appear on Earth? Well, there's a prime directive. We're not able to interfere with Earth. And that's where Gene Roddenberry got his material from in this meeting. So this is all stuff that is basically pulled from reality to put on shows. And whether it's The Expanse or these new shows that are coming up that are dealing with space. I was watching one last night that was really strange. I forgot the name of it because the first time I looked at it, I was just caught by it. And it's this craft that's just leaving Earth and that's going up. And they have an L1 on there who's able to look into your mind and read your mind exactly. And he could kill you just by being in his presence and looking directly in his eyes. He can choke you. He can throw you around. And I thought, really weird. So they're opening doors now to create the atmosphere for revelation. And so we are close to that point. And that's why you think about Oppenheimer and Einstein writing a report. And if you look it up, the Oppenheimer or the Einstein-Oppenheimer report, and look at the list, it'll go through it and you go, oh, wow, that's what they did. Well, that's how they're doing it. And it's interesting. That was an ultra-secret thing that nobody could get a hold of until they wanted it out. Now that it's out, this we have found, and we're going to follow these instructions because they are good. Einstein and Oppenheimer, the two greatest minds to have ever existed. It'll go along those lines. And other scientists disagreed, maybe like Hawking, but we can't be like that. We must receive them and welcome them into our society, and then the thing will come in. Then we must integrate them. And then those that are here that have been in human form will go, well, I am one of those. I am this. And I think there will be a lot of revelations that will be shocking at that time.
Pretty scary. How close do you think we are, if you had to guess?
Well, I said we're at the very beginnings, so it's a slow staged process. Right now, they're warming the water a little bit more. And like I say, it's going to be the next presidency that things will start to speed up. And then by the time you get to the election in 2024, that's when things are going to really start to take off. And then you will see that they are on the run and that they're building things. And one of the things that the United Nations is created for is to take over and put all nations in subjugation. And they're getting more power with each year. And that was created for that very purpose. And they have a timeline to create it. They say they want the world in one world government in the next 12 years. They've set a time stamp now on it. So, figure, in 2024, which is 6 more years, that means they have 6 years to get to that. That's why things will really start cooking in 2024. It'll be the final 6. And that's what they'll be focusing on, the final 6. And they'll divide it up by year, what the revelations and what things will be. So that's how it's going to, I think, unfold.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, we're at the point now where they're showing us live photos on Mars. How much further before we start seeing video photos from Mars? I know some people have had issue with them and have said, well, it doesn't look like the real photos from Mars.
Because there's a blue sky on some of them.
Well, and that's what tripped me out, because the first photos from that same camera were darker, and they were more reddish. But this last one was probably the first one that I've seen where it looks like Martian sky is blue.
It is blue. I mean, the red planet, it's the red soil in it, the dust, that gives it that thing. But when you're there, it's blue skies, just like on Earth. And Titan, oh my goodness. I don't know if Titan is really a methane planet. Might have methane in the atmosphere, but I think you get on the lower ground area, I think that could be water, because they say there are lakes, and they've said it openly. No, you can turn them off if you want. But you have to realize Titan is Earth-like. It is. You take a look at it. Now it's shrouded in a veil of gases like the Earth used to be. We used to be veiled just the same way. And that means that they are very interested in Titan. They're not telling you the full story. I think there's a lot more to that. And I don't think it's all just methane lakes and everything. There's some things about that don't add up. But
and
you look at
Titan is one of the moons of Saturn, is that right?
That is correct. That is correct. It is one of the moons of Saturn. And it gets heat from Saturn. The heat from Saturn is very sufficient that you could grow crops. You could do what you needed to do on that planet. And I think there are certain people that may have been to Titan. They may have gone to Titan. The thing is, people don't realize that they have the ability to get there and come back. They can get to the moon in about an hour and a half, roughly. So these things, you can check these things out if you can get to the right sources and the right people. It's a known fact they've been to other star systems. And
which other star systems do you think?
Well, I'm not at liberty to say exactly where because I can't confirm it. But they've been to Alpha Centauri, for example. It doesn't take long to get there because they have faster than light craft, believe it or not, that can get there in a short time. And I've actually seen videos where they do just it'll be a quick clip. And I think, wow, that looks amazingly real. And they're talking about distant areas. Well, this is our concept. And it just doesn't look like a concept photo. It looks like, wow, that's pretty real looking. And so you'll see certain movies or certain things where clips are coming there showing something of a distant planet. You think, wow, they did a perfect job there. That looks awesome. And it could be actually a reality shot. And then when they come with revelation, they'll go, look, see, look, we put all this stuff out there because we've been there. We know they're there. Or to this planet. And then they'll start using that as a backdrop. And they'll use that also to say that Christians are wrong. And they'll find things on Earth that, Christians are wrong. Christians are wrong. Look at this. They'll have discoveries on planets and on Earth that'll say that Christianity is not real. And that they'll say, we created you. Meaning these demons will be speaking as what? Interstellar travelers that establish this planet and the people. So there's the concept that'll be from 24 on to 2030. That's when it's going to be the final. By 2030, if we're alive, guess what? That's only 12 years. We could be looking face to face at the New World Order.
All right. Anything else? Anything else on this topic before we move on?
No, I think we've hit it kind of hard. Some people listen to this and go, "You're nuts."
Yeah, we
However,
talked about, we covered like 4 different topics and showed how they're all tied together, pretty much.
and the reality is, when this comes about, you can refer back to this saying, see, we were on the right track, because we're here talking about it in 2018. And so that's something to, for them to think about.
Oh, yeah, and then they'll just say that that's because we were part of it. We were helping.
Exactly. They're going to say
we were in on it.
And we're not, because we learned it from the Bible. We knew about this thousands of, Paul and John, John, the Apostle John, knew about this 2,000 years ago. He was told directly how it was going to happen.